Hello, hello. It is Testify Tuesday. This is a new series in the Functional Faith group. And today we are here with Dominique Harris. Hi, Dominique.
Hi, everybody.
I am so happy to get to connect with you on this recording. This is super cool. We actually met through the Clubhouse app. If you aren't familiar with that, you can comment and let us know if you know about it, if you don't know about it. But we have this series here. We just started it a few weeks ago. And because in Functional Faith, we are all about empathy, education, and empowerment. And when I heard Dominique talking in Clubhouse, we met through Clubhouse, and she was talking about her experience as a Black woman in predominantly white seminary. And that's an experience I can relate to. So I reached out to her on that basis. But then I heard her speaking about fear. Then I learned about her apparel brand, No Fear. And I was like, okay, we need to talk. I wanted to introduce her to you guys. So drop some hearts and likes and whatnot for Dominique for being here with us today. So Dominique, will you just share us about yourself, who you are and what you do?
Oh, wow. So I'm Dominique. First of all, I'm just so thankful to have this opportunity to be here and share. I'm always so thankful to have the opportunity to share how God has been um, just so awesome and amazing in my life, despite a lot of trials, despite a lot of pain, just just so many like ups and downs. But still, he's proven himself to be just an awesome, amazing father. And so, I am currently pursuing a Master of Divinity at Trinity Evangelical Divinity School. And that was not my choice. It was not my personal choice. I never thought that I would be pursuing any form of ministry or anything like that. I always thought that I would be in entertainment. I actually started very early on in radio and marketing and things like that. I am a certified evangelist, so it makes sense that I used to be in marketing because I feel like evangelists are like marketers like of the world. You know what I mean? Like we gather people, we share the best ideas and products. So I feel like I was like moving in purpose, but I didn't know. I later on after that decided that I wanted to find something that was more fulfilling in life. And so I did some searching within myself and with the Lord, and I found that okay, education is something that I'm very passionate about, and so I became a special education teacher with emotional behavior disorders. Um, or students with emotional and behavior disorders. So I thought that was like my end career. Like, oh, this is where God wants me to be, and this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I'm going to retire. I at the time was currently living in Kentucky, just very laid back, so different than my upbringing in Chicago, and so I was like just ready to be, this awesome teacher that everybody loved and retire and mind my business. But I do believe that the Lord had other plans and he wanted to expand my reach to be able to mentor and disciple youth. And he needed to do that by bringing me um, in a space where I thought of myself in a different light, where I didn't put limitations on myself. And so that's when I would say all heck broke loose. And that's when all the fear starts to rise up in me. So I'll stop there as about myself. But yeah, so
Okay,
that's what
so
it
is
is.
that what led to you writing your book? Because I don't even know if I said that Dominique is an author and an entrepreneur, as well as a certified evangelist.
Yes, it actually did. When I I left Chicago and moved to Kentucky without like a inkling of a thought. Like I feel like I heard the Lord say go, so I was like, okay, like, but I was still kind of like, one foot in with the Lord and one foot out with the Lord. So it's kind of like I was still doing my own thing, but I was striving to be closer. Now I'll say this a little bit about my I guess like my spiritual or my spiritual relationship and connection with God. It's always been very personal and not necessarily attached to a specific denomination or church. I personally had my own encounter with the Lord when I was 2 years old, verified by my mom. um, and this literally has been the thread of my life. So I had an encounter. I saw something that was supernatural, and it scared me. It frightened me. And I got ready to run away. I was in the laundry room. I got ready to run away and caught my foot on the ironing board and happened to be still hot. Back when I was that age, the iron they didn't automatically shut off back then. It was
Right.
it was still hot. I actually have the burn mark like right here. It was still hot. It fell on my so it was this simultaneously. It happened simultaneously. My foot got caught on the iron. I also got stopped in my tracks by something else, and I clearly remember hearing the voice of God say, "Do not fear." And at the same time, the iron hit my arm, and my mom said I was screaming and screaming and screaming. So she ran to the room where I was, but she said that by the time I got there, I literally had like this calm, like peace over my face.
Wow.
And it was in that moment that she was like, I don't know what, what happened, but there was a peace over my face that my mom says like she's never seen before. And so I remember do not fear. I can remember it like it was yesterday. And so when I tell this story, like people like my mom even said, like, I don't know how you remember stuff, all the way back then, but you remember things that stop time. And that literally stopped time for me. And so I think that the Lord he needed to get to me before any outside factors, before anything else could try to speak to me and tell me what I was or what I wasn't. But he needed to let me know in his own way that whatever I ever saw after that, that I did not need to be afraid, because he was with me. Wow. And I have gone through so many different things in my life. I was a teenager, and my mom experienced some personal things that caused her to be away from the home. And so I kind of raised myself and my brothers. And one thing that happened was there was this woman that kind of appeared out of nowhere, and she presented herself as a mother figure. And although her intentions were good, I think that she was used to kind of pull me away from. I had such a deep seek for God and just his closeness, and a level of intimacy. And she taught me a lot of things that that would not or should not have been a part of my character. I'll say that. But because my mother wasn't there and I was seeking advice and wisdom from a woman to how should I be as a woman, it's almost like it came natural that when she came in, I just gravitated to every single word that she said. Yeah. And so I converted actually to another faith. And I have written and I've shared with many people that particular time I did feel the most distant from God, but I felt like people were answering my questions. Part of the reason why I feel like I couldn't, why I was easily kind of brought into that faith, is I had a lot of questions about God. I had such early experiences with and so such an intimate experience with God very young. I wanted to know so much more, and I would ask a lot of Christians and a pastor in particular, and I asked him like, "How do you know God?" And he says, "You don't ask those types of questions," and that really, fortunately, at that point, it didn't send me away from the church. I just went to another church, but I still had like these deep questions that I wanted to know. And I found a pastor, was a youth pastor, and he really did embed the word of God, like the love of the word of God in my heart. And that was helpful, because shortly after that is when the young lady came into my life and, was kind of discipling me into not so great of a place.
Yeah.
And I said all that to say, I struggled with a lot of insecurities about my identity, as a woman, my femininity, what that meant for me as a child of God. But I was okay, because it was like, if I had a question, they had an answer. And it was different from when I would ask Christian questions. And they would say they don't ask questions like that, or don't, so not only does my brand uh, deal with something that goes all the way back to my childhood, as far as like that assurance of peace and love of God that pushes out those types of fears. There's my book itself is called God Gave Me Beauty, Seeing Self Through the Eyes of the Creator. That really hones in on those already kind of deeply seated insecurities, and then how it became like heightened in those moments where I was really seeking God, and all these other factors were happening in my life, and I was just trying to figure it out, so the my book talks, it's really a form of deliverance, but it's not like, I don't know how many people know about sugar limbs, but sometimes it can be scary to other people. It's not like that. I just tell a series of stories about my life, and pinpoint certain things or issues that I struggle with. Rejection, neglect, fear, uh, just being insecure about my skin color, um, was wanting to be accepted. These different things that can sometimes attach themselves to us as we grow up, and kind of grow up with us, and we think that they become, we think they're just a part of our personality,
Yeah.
and sometimes they're not. Majority of the time, they're not a part of our personality. It's just our coping mechanisms that
Right.
allow us to just say, well, I used to say, I'm so passionate. I had anger issues. I was disappointed in life, my father wasn't there and I wanted him to be, or my mother wasn't there and I wanted her to be. So I was angry, and I would tell people, I'm just passionate about this. No.
Yes.
So it's things like that we tend to just cover up or put a fancy name on it. And it's not until you start digging more deeply into the root of things that you'll see, like, oh no, like, no, that's fear, or no, that's rejection, or you know what I mean. And so that's comparison, or so it that part of my journey helped me to actually move into the purpose that I feel like, or one of the assignments that I feel like I'm supposed to leaving this earth, and that is No Fear. It is currently an apparel brand, but the vision that God has given me for No Fear goes beyond clothes. It goes beyond my little. I used to have this little setup in this room of, I was pressing out these T-shirts, and I recorded it because I was like, man, one day it's gonna be bigger than this, and I trust the vision that God's given me, because I don't care what denomination you are. I don't care if you're a non-believer, you don't believe in God at all. Fear. Here's the thing that I like to say. Fear doesn't have a purpose until you discover yours. I know some of the most.
I write that down.
Because I was a child. They used to call me. This is a made up person, but it's kind of like Wonder Woman. But my mom used to call me Mega Woman when I was a little kid. I used to like to jump off of furniture. I'd be like, hey, hold this broomstick up high so I can see how high I can fly. I used to do like crazy things like that. And even in my 20s, in my younger years and like teenage years, I would take such big risks just because I was like, why not? Right. It wasn't until the Lord started speaking to me about what he wanted me to do as a minister, as an evangelist, as a, just as his child and my contribution to the kingdom, that I started experiencing like all of this fear that would literally have me paralyzed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I never felt this before. And as a matter of fact, people and myself like have called me fearless. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're so like fearless. You just up and left, or you just up and leave and you go. And I'm like, why am I so afraid to do these things now? And it's because I had an inkling, just a small piece of the purpose that God had in mind when he formed my little body in my mom's in my mom's womb. And that is when fear got activated. Like, because it is it's a thief. It robs you of your future. It robs you of your purpose. It robs you of opportunities. It is a thief. And we know that God isn't a thief, but we do know who is. And so it didn't come along with our original design. And that is why seeing yourself the way that God sees you is so important. Because when you do, even though, yes, fear is a real thing, it happens. You can feel it sometimes. It manifests in your body, in your speech, like, but the thing about it is, we were talking about this a little bit earlier. Even if you have to do something afraid, the thing about fear is you don't get past it. Like, you have to go through that. You have to go through it.
Yeah.
And for instance, if you're like afraid to do something, the only way that you can become unafraid is actually doing the thing that makes you afraid, like more and more and more. And so it's the craziest thing, but it's important to know who you are in Christ in order for you to even have the courage to push through fear. Like, you need that courage, because what it means when you know who you are is that you're a child of God, and he didn't create you, first of all, for nothing. In order for you to be here, he created your purpose first. And so that's number one. And number two, he's made it very clear in his word, whether you whether you have um, a distant or near relationship with his word, he has shown in some instances, for some people, it can be a little it could be tricky. And I don't want to like just kind of blanketly say like, this or you should know this. I don't want to say it like that. But God has never been God has never been uncertain about his children. He's made very clear how he feels about his children. And if you think about your ideal, I won't try to like humanize God like that, but if you think about like your ideal parent and what that feels like, as I'm not a parent, but I do have nieces and nephews, and even as an aunt, I would never put my nieces and nephews in a situation that I know would harm them.
Right.
So they know me as their aunt, and they know that I love them. So there's a level of trust that comes along with them knowing that I love them, that can allow them to be who they need to be. And if my niece, wants to jump off of a bed and jump into my arms, she's secure jumping into my arms, knowing that because I love her, that I would never like just move my arms out of the way and let her fall. Like, I'm going to try and catch her. I'm going to catch her. If something happens where I stumble and we both fall or something like that, those were not the intention. I think sometimes if we sometimes we can get a little bitter towards God sometimes, because we have moments where we've said, hey, I'm going to jump, and we fall in. It's like, why did you let me fall? Like, you know what I mean? But
I've been there.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I have too. I have that. I certainly have myself, and I think that if we just can assure ourselves that His love for us is great, His love for His children is great, His love for His Son is great, and He desires to He desires for us to experience that love at the fullest capacity. It allows for us to just try to trust beyond what we don't know and what we don't see, because fear it is heightened because of the unknown aspects of certain situations.
Yeah.
So yeah. I don't know where the question started. I just kept.
I don't know, girl, but this is all good. I got so many notes. I'm like, we're talking about getting to the root of things, getting to the root of our fear, and that's so much. I know you don't even know, but that's so much like our language is going from the fruit to the root of any and all dysfunction or darkness or discomfort, like swimming upstream, because that's where things start. You talked about your identity as a woman and your identity, just your femininity. And I mean, like, I feel like that's such a common issue for so many people. The messages that we get as women, and the messages that men get as well. It's just difficult to know really who you are. You talked about your book, God Gave Me Beauty. What was it that you said that I was just like, ooh, fear doesn't have a purpose until you do? Did you just come up with that on the spot? Is that in your book?
No, it's not in my book. That is.
You could write a book just on that.
Well, that, I mean, I was actually, it came up probably about an hour or so before, because I was just thinking through and just just kind of praying and wanting to be able to reach an audience that I have never met before, and so I just asked the Lord for language, and so that came up. I was like, oh my gosh. So when you responded like that, I was like, I know that's the same way I responded when I.
Yes, I mean, if that just reached you, type it in the comments. I'm gonna read it for you again. Fear does not have a purpose until you do.
Yeah.
There you go. Type that in the comments if that reached you.
Yeah.
That was so good. Talk about how we can't go over it, can't go around it. You got to go through it.
Yeah, go through it. Is that like a little song or something like that, or like I feel like that's like a child song or like something like
is.
that.
Yeah. It's we're going on a bear hunt.
Yes. Yeah.
And the only way to become unafraid is doing the thing that you're afraid of. Those were that was just so much goodness. I don't even know if I have any other questions after that. Oh man.
Yeah.
Okay. How can someone allow God in 2021 to show them who they are in Him?
Ooh.
I know that's a deep one.
It really is.
Maybe we should say to begin to show them, because that's like an onion. There's so many layers.
It's so many layers. It's so many layers. I'll say this. I began writing my book. I started this program in August 2017. I started writing my book probably the month after that. So September of 2017. And I would write immediately after prayer. I would write because I wanted God's spirit to breathe through my words, but also in what stories and encounters to share. I did not release this book until April of 2020. And it's because as I began to open up to God and ask God questions about why I was the way that I was, and why I felt some of the ways that I felt as I'm writing these stories. I'm like, why did I do that? Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, oh my gosh, like I could not have loved myself if I allowed this to happen to me. Like this is as I'm writing these chapters out, well, these stories, because they're all like it's a compilation of different stories. And I'm like, oh my gosh, why did I do that? The reason it took so long for me to release this book is because it actually, I had to sit it down sometimes because the Lord was still taking me through this process. And it's what it took was, and this is the same way with No Fear. What it took was that He gave me the title. God gave me beauty. It was for myself. It was Him assuring me that I was beautiful, that I am beautiful, because I had questions about that, and started with me having questions about that. So I think one of the ways for a person to begin on that journey is to be open and vulnerable and ask questions.
Yeah.
And journal, write down and ask the Lord, you know, all the hard things, all the hard questions that you have. He will give you an answer. I don't care if it's through a person, through a book, through the Bible, through a broadcast. The Lord used to speak to me on billboards. I'll be driving or riding my bike somewhere, and I'll look up and it'd be big bold letters like of whatever. Like it wouldn't be anything like biblical, or it wouldn't be a Bible verse, but it would be a very strong message. And for so long he used like headlines. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, but it starts with you opening up yourself, and sometimes that can be so scary, right? To be vulnerable. Sometimes you feel like, is God even real, or if is am I even talking, who am I talking to, or things like that. But that's where faith comes in. And man, it's a powerful thing. Faith is so powerful, because it opens up doors and opportunities um, that you can never have or experience if you just don't trust. It's a deep trust. It's a deep belief, and that's what I had when I sat down and said, okay, if you said that I'm beautiful, if you said that in my original design you gave me beauty, then why do I feel like this about my skin?
Yeah.
Why do I feel abandoned by my father? Why did you make him my father? Why did you choose him to be my father if you knew that he was going to leave me? Why did you allow, my mom to go through these mental issues or these addictions and different things? Why did you set me up in this family? You know what I mean? If you gave me something that's beautiful, if you called me beautiful, like why, and he literally is like question by question tackled them. He tackled them. My skin had to be this complexion. I talk about a story in my book called See You Later Alligator, and it's because I was born with eczema, and it was really bad.
Yeah.
And I went to school in Florida, and was predominantly white. I was the only little, chocolate drop in the middle of everybody. And so I already, I didn't think that I was different as a child, but I kind of felt like that. But the day that I talk about where the little girl squealed and she didn't want to touch my hand in the little circle that we were making at school, she was like, ew, her skin's like alligator skin. And that's the day that I felt different. Like
Yeah.
God, why did you give me this skin? And to hear my mom's feelings on her response to that, and she said how she how she felt helpless,
Right.
but she tried to do whatever it was that she can do. And so um she did some trial drug that made my skin worse. it
Oh
made
no.
my it made my skin worse. And she's like, oh my gosh, like what did I allow these people to like talk me into? Like it was really bad. But after a while, it got so bad, and then it started to like flake off, just flake off, and it was like this smooth, like layers of skin underneath. And that moment, like I talk about it, it's kind of like the beauty for ashes type of situation. Um, I have had a lot of moments in my life where it's like, man, this was a bad situation. But later on, I can see how God was intentional in his design, because I've been able to speak to so many young girls who have dark skin, who have what we would call like impurities like acne or flaws and different things like that, and just show them how God literally uses every single thing that he placed on the inside of us or on our exterior for a specific reason, even down to like you being a woman or a girl. Like that has a purpose, because if not, you would have been a man. You know what I mean? Like you know that. So it's like it's certain things like that. It's like that, you know. Um, he started to just share with me why, and it was bigger than me. And it always is. And I think that if you get vulnerable, ask those questions and expect an answer from them, and don't like oh yeah, whatever, but actually expect an answer. Expect some type of revelation. I believe he'll give it to you, and so that's where I would say one could start with trying to find out their purpose and trying to find out yeah, it's to just start with being vulnerable with those questions and those dark spots that that you'd otherwise like to um, leave alone, because most of the times those dark spots have the frustrations in there, it has the disappointments in there, it really has the uncertainties there of the whys and stuff. So ask God why, or just write down. I had a notebook for a year leading before I ever wrote the book, and the name on the notebook was Why Am I Alive? And I was nervous that someone would find it one time, because like it could sound a little, like I don't want to be here. But no, I was actually asking questions, writing down questions.
Wow.
Why am I here? Why am I alive, God? Like why? Because if I'm alive, then that means I have a reason to be here. So just ask questions.
That is such a good answer. That is such a good answer. How can someone allow God to show them who they are in 2021? Be honest. Be
Yeah, that's
honest,
it. Short and simple.
surrender, ask questions.
Yep.
Those are not very common answers in the majority of Christian churches and denominations. Like you said, how many of you guys can relate to Dominique's experience of asking questions and being told not to? I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah.
And so for you to say, where do I start? Where does one start? Ask those questions. Ask them. They are there. God can handle them. It's to God's joy and to God's glory for you to be real and to be honest, because God already knows what's going on in your heart.
Yep.
God already knows. And so ask those questions and give it. Even in asking, there's trust there.
Yeah.
In asking the question, there's vulnerability.
Yep.
And God doesn't force himself on us. That's not God's MO. That's not God. Like God waits and gently beckons us, right? And so it's when we ask those questions and we're giving God an opportunity, we're saying, I'm listening, right? So that was such a good answer. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for this talk. I mean, it's been a blessing to me. I'm sure it's going to be a blessing to other people. So I want to ask you, how can we continue to follow you, learn from you? I know you do some spoken word. Is that ever posted anywhere? Where can we find your book? God Gave Me Beauty. Where can we find that as well?
You can find my book at DominiqueDHarris.com. DOMINIQUED. Then David Harris at Dominique. Jesus, sorry, but that's my quirkiness. And you can follow me on Instagram at I am Dominique D Harris. I'm also on Facebook. You can follow me on Facebook, but I spend a lot of time on Instagram. So feel free to reach out, follow, DM me. I also I do a lot of like mentorship and stuff like that, and so I would love to connect any type of way with in any areas like that. So yeah, that's pretty much how you can keep in touch with me.
Definitely.
I respond.
She does. I messaged her. She does respond. Well, thank you, thank you, thank you. I really can't thank you enough. This has been so encouraging and like raw and honest and just like, man, it's been good. It's been good, girl. So thank you.
Praise God.
And I look forward to continuing to get to know you. I'm sure we'll do this again sometime soon.
Thank you so much for having me. It has been my pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right. So that is Testify Tuesday. Leave us a comment. Let us know what your greatest takeaway was. All right. Go in peace and presence.